I thought when I saw it, when he kicked out, I thought it'd be an automatic red, but he's put him on report. He should probably get a ban.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Back 10 here at the All Out Rugby League studio. I am your host Kyle Amor and it's good to be back after a frantic weekend of Challenge Cup action that's just gone. Just before us here this afternoon though, we are joined by former Huddersfield, Castleford, St Helens and Melbourne Storm front rower Keith Mason. Keith, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much, mate. It's nice to be here.
And you were spotted yesterday in the crowd watching your lads' side take on Wakefield.
That's right, yeah. It was the first time I've ever been in a Wigan crowd, so it was quite intense.
Well, we'll dive into that a little bit later on. And obviously, as well, joining us back from his 24 hours in Paris, All Out Rugby League journalist Josh McAllister. Josh, how was that trip?
Yeah, very good. It was obviously for the build-up for Catalans Wigan. 15,000 expected there, 5,000 travelling Wiganers. So yeah, excitement building there. So we'll talk about that as the weeks go by, no doubt.
Guys, we ask you each and every week, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything here from Back 10. If you're watching on a mobile phone or a tablet, in the comment section below, you can swipe to the left to reveal that hype button. We ask you each and every week to hit that hype button up to 3 times per week. You can do that and that helps us to grow our audiences even more so. But for now, let's dive into this week's show. Okay, so let's start with reverse order from the weekend that has just gone. On Sunday, we saw probably the most entertaining game, if you'd like, across the 4 ties of the Challenge Cup. Josh, we'll come over to you first. The game came with some controversy, though, didn't it, at some points?
Yeah, it did. As you say, it was probably the most entertaining game of the round. And Keith, you said you were there, but there was the moment of the sin bin in Jazz Tevaga with a kick out on Liam Marshall. We'll go straight into that. Look, you can clearly see his leg gets in a difficult position that does look painful, but you can't kick out like that. Obviously, at the time of the recording, we don't know the outcome of the match review panel. But he's already got a couple of points on his disciplinary record, so it would be a shock if that doesn't result in a ban. I mean, you was in the crowd. I imagine they were all against it and probably wanted a red card, didn't they, Keith?
Yeah, I wasn't quite certain what happened at first, but when I look back, he had his leg in here. I think Liam Marshall was messing about a bit with his leg, and I think it was a retaliation. As you know, sometimes when you're on the field and players are, sometimes you don't see a lot of stuff going on the field, like standing on hands and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was just a retaliation from is he called Jazz? The guy? Yeah. From him. So obviously, I thought when I saw it, when he kicked out, I thought it'd be an automatic red, but he's put him on report. He should probably get a ban.
Well, Darryl Powell suggested that Liam Marshall knew what he was doing. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure that if you look at the tackle, Liam Marshall's head is facing to sort of the opposite way. He's got 2 guys who are pushing him one way, and he's got Jazz's leg underneath him, hasn't he? So I'm not quite sure. However, that said, he shouldn't react like that, should he? And kick out.
That's the one. I think, there was 2 defenders on Liam Marshall's back, wasn't there? So there must have been a lot of weight going on Jazz's leg. So, yeah, I say, I'm no doubting that there was probably a little pain there, but you can't react like that and kick out in the game of Rugby League. And I think it probably came as a shock that it wasn't a red card, because how often do you see a player get kicked on the floor? He probably got lucky there. But, again, it maybe almost cost him a game as well, because he had a few penalties in the second half. I think he had a big say in that game, but for the wrong reasons.
Well, talking about, it's interesting, Keith, you mentioned about things sometimes happen. You're not quite so innocent yourself, are you? 2010, I think it was, Stu Fielding's ankle. Yeah. You caught the yellow card that day. So, look, you don't want lads sent off, but equally, sometimes heat of the moment.
Yes.
Well, what your memories from that game?
Well, my argument is I had rubber studs on, and as all aim was to wind Stuart up, and it worked. So, but yeah, like I said, in Rugby League, people are standing in your hands. There's a lot of stuff that the crowd doesn't see. Unfortunately, that day, Brian Carney was the culprit. He was saying, "Look, Keith Mason, look what he's doing. He's standing on Stuart." But anyway, me and Stuart are okay now, thank God.
Good.
We're all good. He's a good guy. But yeah, I think with what happened with Jazz, I think his reaction is his defence. If he tries to not get a ban, it was a reaction. obviously the guy twisting his leg. It's not a nice thing, but you know what I mean. Sometimes you don't see stuff on the field, and it happens in the heat of the moment. So I think probably he should get a ban because, like you said, you can't be kicking with your studs first.
No. That said, though, it wasn't Jazz Tevanga's brightest afternoon, was it? You know, he's one of those players that, you know, he can produce. You know, we've seen him already. He's produced some quality in games, but you know, sometimes when he gets that, he can get it wrong, can't he? You know, and he come up with a couple of drops, couple of penalties. And Keith, have you ever played with those sort of characters where they really get underneath their opposition's skin, but sometimes they can get that balance? When it goes wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah, I think back when I was playing early thousands, there was quite a lot of characters. I think there were more characters back then than these now. I think, you know, Barry McDermott's, the people I were coming up against, Terry O'Connor, and there was Stewart and there was Paul Anderson and all these. And to be honest with you, I wasn't like the biggest of props, but you know, when you get thrown into the wolf's lair, as you call it, like I was only 17, 18, so going up against these big props, you've got to be tough. You can't show them that you're scared. So there's a lot of niggle, and obviously you'll know, Carl, being a front rower as you come in. The older players, the veterans, try to scare you a little bit, and I got a lot of that when I first came into the game. But I think it toughens you up, though. Yeah,
for sure. No doubt about it, Keith. I can echo that for certain. But heading back to the game as well, some defensive frailties from Wigan. You know, I think that's 34 points when that second try was scored by Wakefield. 34 points in the last 24 minutes of their playing. Should Wigan be worried?
Wigan will be so unhappy with that second try because I think there was 3 defenders on that forward, and he just reaches a hand out and sneaks past them all. Look, Wigan have been doing it tough. There's a lot of talk on Bevan French, but Bevan French on the field or not, they shouldn't be conceding that many points. I think across the last 3 or 4 games on average, it's been 28 points they've been conceding. That's uncharacteristic of Wigan. That's not in Wigan's DNA. So, you know, we talk about the players they're missing, but the players on the field should not be conceding that many. And I think Liam Farrell's maybe been a bit of a scapegoat in recent weeks. I mean, he's doing what he can on that left-hand side. We all know he's not a centre, so in the attacking side of things, he's not a Jake Wardle. But Liam Farrell's not the one conceding 28 points on average. He's not the one conceding alone 14 points on Good Friday in the final 10 minutes. So, yeah, it's been a very up and down for Wigan, and you could see in their celebrations how much that win meant to them. They needed that one, I think, as a little bit of a confidence boost.
Well, touching on Liam Farrell, I thought he was brilliant yesterday. Keith, you know, Josh is right. You know, he's come under a bit of fire at the moment. You know, people saying that he's passed his sell by date in that way. And you know, what do you make of Liam Farrell? Because I know how high I hold him in regard as a rugby league fan and a player that I've played against. But he has to be doing a job out on that left centre, and he's still doing the job very well.
Yeah, to say he's out of position, playing at centre, he's not a centre, like you said, he's a back rower. Obviously, defending out wide as a second row, it's very similar to defending like a centre. But he's, you know, I remember playing against him back in 2003, and it's 2026 now, it's 13 years ago, and he was playing really well then. He has been a veteran in the game. I think what he does bring to Wigan, he brings a lot of influence to that team. He is an old horse. He has been around a long time, but it's great for him to be a mentor to even the younger lads. You know, like my son Lucas, he's a back rower.
Yeah.
So he's learning off people like him, like Liam, and passing good, fantastic knowledge down to Lucas. But like I said, doing it at 36 at that level, and it's weird because, I mean, I was stood with the Wigan fans, but I was on the side where Liam was. And I was watching him, and you know, his kick chasing that was fantastic. Yeah. You know, there's stuff like that. You know, like, you know, your 1%ers. Like I always said to my lad, like, you know, make sure you double up a marker and kick chase hard and stuff, because this is what the coaches love. It's an attitude thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's those small efforts, those 1%ers we often hear that go on to you know, be the big players in big games. Everyone sees and remembers the try, but so often, I mean, talk about big 1%er players. Brad O'Neill right at the end, right? That is a top. I have no doubt that will feature in Matty Pete's review. No doubt about it whatsoever. But just a word on Wakefield as well, because you know, we've talked about Wigan there, and we've been, you know, we've been very positive towards them, I suppose. But Wakefield, well, would you think they'll be thinking that was one that got away?
Absolutely, yeah. One that got away against a Wigan side that was, went into it off a Good Friday defeat. In the week, Jake Truman, I think he's been mentioned a few times. I think it was Danny Maguire that gave him big raps a couple of weeks ago on this show. Jake Truman signed a new deal there. Look, yeah, probably is disappointing because at the start of the season, Wakefield probably did have a Challenge Cup final appearance probably in their sight, and it mixes the game up a little bit as well, doesn't it? It's a new team making Wembley. It's good for the sport, bit of narrative there. But now they can focus, I suppose. I think Danny Maguire said the same again a few weeks ago, that they can put all their focus on Super League after a rough start to the season. They're amongst it at the top, aren't they? So making that top 6 at the end of the year is their number one priority now.
There was a lot of noise from Wakefield. Matt Ellis, the media team, really bulling it up and wanting to get back to Wembley. I remember seeing a video during the week of one of the old ex-players that played alongside Neil Fox, and they talked about adding colour into them pictures because they're black and white photos. And I really like that quote as well from Matt Ellis. But it was probably a game too far this season, Keith. But what have you made of Wakefield? Because I've obviously spent a couple of years there. We've probably played against each other on that pitch as well. But it's a very different place now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I actually started my career at Wakefield, so back in the day, me and Westwood and Gaz Ellis were all playing in the academy together, and Danny Bruff. Some really fantastic players came from that club. I had some brilliant memories before I went over to Melbourne. But seeing the club, what they're doing now, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because obviously I've not seen much of Wakefield, but I watched them intently yesterday. I thought Jake Truman was outstanding. Along with the centre, Cam Scott, big stocky lad. Yeah. So I know he's not too old, but I was really impressed with the big Vagana guy. Is that Joe Vagana's son?
It is, yeah.
I thought he's absolutely massive, but I've played against his dad many times. Had some battles with him, but yeah, I thought they were really good. And the thing is, the difference is, I think the difference was, it could have been the sin binning, but I think if you look at the clubs that have gone on to win Challenge Cups over the last number of years, Wigan have got a lot of big game players. Yeah. And unfortunately for teams like Wakefield, they always seem to come unstuck, whether it's the quarter-final, semi-final. They can never push and get over the line and get to Wembley. I would love to see someone like Wakefield get to Wembley and win it.
Well, you mentioned there Liam Farrell, right? That he is a big game player, experience, and what that does for lads who haven't potentially walked that road before. Yeah. So you're right to mention that. Wakefield, obviously, look, they are a club that, Matt Ellis has set a sight on a grand final in 5 years, and bringing in players like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Yeah. It's a completely different Wakefield from the one that we were a part of, wasn't it?
Of course, yeah. I think, obviously, Wakey, They go through spells where they're doing really, really well, and then they'll fall off. And in this game, you've got to be consistent. Yeah. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be consistent all year round. I mean, you've seen Wigan. They've had a little bit of a wobble. I mean, they played against Huddersfield. Huddersfield, sacked Robbo. Robbo wasn't there, so they're going into that game against Wigan with nothing to lose. The back's against the wall, and sometimes that's a good place to be for the team. But obviously Wigan, the pressure on them to win, and Huddersfield came out and beat them, and then obviously they've gone and the last 20 minutes against St Helens, they lost the focus. Yeah. And we can all do that, right? So the good thing is they've come back, they've played a full 80 minutes against Wakefield. Obviously Wakefield had a good start, but like I said, it's the big game players, big game experiences. A lot of them players in that Wigan team have been in plenty of quarterfinals and they know what it takes to get to a final. Yeah, and I think that was the difference.
No, definitely. Well, Wakefield for so long had been known as a bit of a selling club. Any talent that came through, they would normally get picked and pulled apart. So here's hoping that Wakefield now can become a club that not only keeps hold of players, well, in fact, it not become, because it's doing it now, isn't it? It's attracting players like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, etc. But you did mention there Wigan losing the last two. At no point in Matty Peate's tenure has he lost 3 in a row. So and let's talk about the other controversial part. Sam Walters. Should he have been dismissed from the field?
So it's that headbutt, isn't it?
He definitely. It's. You could say it was a lean, but you can't even be doing that nowadays, can you? He
Yes.
doesn't. It's more of a lean, isn't it?
It's a hard one. In argument, he says he's just in contact. He's not done it. I mean, look on the replay and you slow it down. Potentially, he stretches his head out, doesn't he, for that have that little knock. But his argument will be it's all in contact. He's just trying to win that contact, win the rucker, that type of thing. So I'd be surprised. I don't know. It could
Well, it's another one for the discipline.
yeah, they'll look at it, won't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Match review panel will have to look at that one. Yeah, for sure.
And we mentioned there Jake Truman. What a stellar season or opening quarter he's having. World Cup coming up, Keith, at the end of the year. Could Jake Truman find himself back in an England shirt?
I think he's definitely got a chance. I think if he's consistent, he's got a good build, he's got good speed, good kicking game, and I think if he stays consistent, I think if he shows up like he did yesterday, he's definitely in for a shout. 100%.
Well, we'll see how that develops as Wakefield carry on their season, just solely now focusing on the Super League title. Okay, right, let's have a quick look at the other fixtures. St Helens cruised past Catalan Dragons. Catalan, of course, without Joel Tompkins. Josh, do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, so Ryan Sheridan's been taking charge, hasn't he? I think the first game that Joel wasn't at was the Hull FC game.
That's right, yeah.
So now he's missed 3 altogether, and the news is that he's leaving due to personal reasons. Ryan Sheridan taking interim charge. So that's interesting because that's another Super League team searching for a head coach. So we've got Hull KR, and I know Paul Aiken, the CEO, said on BBC over the weekend that they want to make a decision by May. Now, Willie Peters' decision's given time in their hands, but yeah, we did say by May, so then they could work things out. I know we broke the news on All That Rugby League. Officially, Hull FC are looking for a head coach, though. It's going to be Steve McNamara. It'd be interesting. Sam Burgess is off contract at Warrington Wolves, but as things are going, you would give a new contract to him because obviously they're flying high. So and Huddersfield as well. They're hoping to make an appointment by the end of April, but that's a lot of big Super League clubs there looking for head coaches. So it'll be interesting to see who emerges in the coming weeks for this season and next season.
Well, regardless what happens here at All Out Rugby League, we wish Joel Tompkins the best for the future, whatever that may be. We wish him well. But the job at Catalan Dragons, Keith, that's got to be an attractive one for a coach on either side of the pond, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It is actually good to see Ryan, head coach there. He grew up a couple of doors down from me, so he's a Judgment Moor lad. But like I said, Catalans is they've been successful over the last number of years, reaching a couple of finals, winning the Challenge Cup. So yeah, like I said, I mean, and obviously they're down there in the sun in Perpignan, and I used to love travelling to Perpignan and playing against Catalan. A couple of days away, eating a lot of bread.
It's not that anymore, Keith. They fly you in and out in the same day.
Is
now,
that right?
So,
yeah. All right.
You used to get 4 days.
So
there,
we used to fly to Barcelona. Then you get on the coach to Barcelona, and you go into Perpignan, and so yeah, we're a good couple of days out there. But yeah, always tough games down there.
Always tough. The only downside to when they used to do it that way, you'd end up eating your own height in bread before by the time they kick
exactly.
off.
The cheese and bread you put 4 stone by the time kick-off comes.
But yeah, look, a word on St Helens because, look, they're sat joint top of the Super League. They've had a huge injury crisis. They've had Mike Rush leaving, of course. They've had a lot of disruption, I would say. But Paul Rowley has managed just to, shut out the external noise. He's not used his injuries as an excuse. Everybody and look, they're sat joint top. I mean, they've got players back from in that Catalan game, and they've pulled Catalan apart. Does what's just happened over the last 6-7 weeks, and given where they are out the back of it, does it make them a lot more dangerous heading into this second quarter of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. The season's not won in the first 5 weeks, is it? So, and if you look at when I looked at the Saints squad at the beginning of the year, I thought they look like I've got a strong squad, and they have. And obviously, they've struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks with injuries being out, a lot of players being out. But as you've seen now, the players are coming back into the squad. I think Saints, they will be right up there at the end of the season, as long as injury permits and stuff. But I mean, what they did to Wigan is just a la St Helens, isn't it? You can never write them off, and and I've played in a number of games for Saints, and so have you, Kai. I think that the dark horses, to be honest, with this year for the Challenge Cup and the Grand Final.
Paul Rowley mentioned after the game about the emotion that it would have took. I mean, I still, I live in the area in between the two towns, so you can't help but in the build-up feel it all, and after the game feel it all, and have to listen to everybody who has their opinion on it. But it's right, there was a huge amount of energy going into the game, and there was certainly, depending on which side of the hill you live on, there was a huge amount of emotion that had gone into the aftermath of it. He had to bring his players back down and then come up with what he described as a professional performance. I mean, they had 11 or 12 out against Wigan, and look, to be honest, for an hour, 65 minutes, they were second best. They managed to hang in there enough. But then what happened is just something that you only get to see once in a generation thing, really, don't you? The way that happened. But again, going back to the Catalan performance, it could have been easy for them to get dragged into a dogfight, given the fact that the Catalans players knew that their coach was probably leaving them.
Yeah, I thought that again for Wigan. I thought after that Good Friday and all the energy and maybe having a bit of confidence knocked out of them, that could have been a tough game for them. Saints suffocated Catalans, to be honest with you. With everything that's going on at the Dragons, they just didn't turn up, and they had a good, strong squad out there. And then St Helens in the first half lost Jake Wingfield with fearing the ACL, and that's such a shame because he's been really unlucky, isn't he? Through injuries, but he's got so much potential, and then just injury strike, don't they, every season for him. And then Lewis Murphy, I think it was a dislocated elbow, and you knew it was a bad one because when it happened, Jackson Hastings immediately signalled to the sideline for someone to come on, and Dion Cross looked away straight away. And I think there's been a replay on a Super League TV, Super League Plus. It was on.
Was it? Couldn't find it.
Well, that was one of the talk, wasn't it? That some people couldn't find that as easily as they probably should have. That his elbow popped out. So yeah, again, that's 2 more injuries. But Paul Rowley's king of the underdogs, isn't he? And they're firing. I think at the start of the season, I tipped him for Challenge Cup. So that's looking good so far.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Josh's prediction comes up true once again. You've got a little habit of that, haven't you? To be fair, but looking at the other games quickly, Hull KR v a depleted York side. Hull KR winning again. Nobody's really talked too much about them, have they, Hull KR? But they're starting to put some stuff together now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they had a bit of a wobble, didn't they? Where do you go from beating Brisbane Broncos in World Cup Challenge?
Tough asking.
Only way is down in it, and obviously they went to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
The time difference and all that kind of stuff. It was up. They were always going to be up against it. But you can't beat quality. They've got a quality team.
Yeah.
They've regrouped. Willie Peters is a fantastic coach. Brought them all back together. And even without the captain, they weren't quite comfortable on the weekend. And I think you'll see them now build some momentum and some consistency over the next couple of months. They're going to be right up there at the end of the season, and I won't be surprised if they go on and do it again.
Yeah, 100%. It's about consistency for Hull KR. There's no doubt that was one of the most chaotic starts to a season that any club has ever had, hasn't it? Between Vegas and then Brisbane and then Catalans, and then they're off to Toulouse this week, so it's another tough ask. But it's just now finding that consistency for them. And a special mention to Tyrone May, obviously scored a hat-trick, but Mikey Lewis probably produced the moment of the match with his chip over the top and grounding the ball. But Tyrone May is so instrumental in that Hull KR side, and probably an unsung hero, probably not within those 4 walls in the Hull KR supporters, but just within Super League, probably goes under the radar a little bit, Tyrone May, but he's a huge player there at Craven Park.
Yeah. And another team that I've said each and every week who are just going about bubbling away, Warrington.
Yeah.
Again, a tricky game going into this one, because when you hammer aside the week before and you play the exact same fixture again, it never always works that way, does it? And at 6-6, they were, it wasn't all their way for large periods, but they managed to find a win.
They did. I've been impressed with Warrington. I think it could be their year this year.
Oh, you said
it. I mean, would it be nice to see Warrington win the grand final? I mean, they've been to a few, but I think they've got a fantastic coach and they've got a very strong group of players, and it looks like they're all playing together and playing really well. I think the key is, I think you got to rock up every single week. This, Super League is a tough competition. They talk about the NRL and all this kind of stuff. I think the NRL is marketed better, right? Yeah. But when you put their best against our best, we seem to. And I know they've got to travel over to 12,000 miles and the time difference and stuff. But we don't beat them by luck. Hull KR beat a fantastic Brisbane team, and I know Brisbane came back the last 20 minutes. They showed a bit of their class, but this competition, you have to be consistent every single week, and you have to keep your players on the paddock. So the backroom staff, the physios, the coaches, managing your players and not making them play 80 minutes every single week. So it is a long season, and as you know, it's the toughest sport in the world. So you've got to manage your players and obviously keep your best players on the field.
Well, 3 of the sides that have progressed through to the semi-final are sat in the top 3 of Super League, and OKR obviously after their start. Should it be that way, where the 4 best are all sat up there at the top of the table? There's no easy game to call, is what I'm trying to say, heading into the semi-final now. Should that what it should look like, or
that's what you want, don't you? You want to go in, you want to look at a competition and say, I don't know who's going to win this one. Look, I had some question marks over BBC picking Hull KR versus York. Now, obviously, when they picked, they didn't know the injuries that York were going to have, but going into it, they could only name 19 players, and you just sort of knew, given KR and the results over St Helens and just sort of the times that York were going through, you sort of knew the outcome of that one. But when you go into the semi-finals, you want to look at 2 games and go, I'm not sure who's going to win this one.
Keith, I'll ask you a double-barreled question here. We've had guests on previously that have spoken about maybe the magic of the cup is starting to fade away. Look, we've got 2 belting semi-finals. It's probably what the competition needed, right? So the first one is on that, the magic of the cup, and the second one is where would you like to see these semi-finals being played? Because that is yet to be decided, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously the semi-finals need to be neutral stadiums. Obviously, Wigan and St Helens, you probably think maybe play at Lee.
I can help you out a little bit. So the choices here. So for KR Warrington, isn't it? There is York, Wakefield, and Doncaster. Now Doncaster hosted Hull KR Wigan a couple of years ago, and then on this side it's Salford, Lee, or Warrington. But I think speculation, you go in towards the Warrington and the Doncaster, potentially Wakefield.
Doncaster though, what?
Well, they hosted it a few years ago, didn't they? Potentially Wakefield. I mean, I wouldn't mind to see a semi-final at Wakefield.
I
think so, yeah. Because,
reward a stadium that's an owner that's put a little bit of money into a stadium and showcase that rather than showcasing a football stadium. Yeah. It looks like in this side, Warrington maybe is the leading candidate stadium. So that helps you out a little bit there.
Yeah. Well, you've just basically given the answers then, haven't you, Josh?
Thanks a lot. But I have played at Saints Huddersfield back in 2004. We played at Warrington. It was a fantastic day. But yeah, maybe Warrington would be a good one. But coming back to the Challenge Cup is always something that I watched as a kid. I watched the Wigans and the Witnesses and I always dreamt of like, wow, I'd love to win a Challenge Cup. I think I remember playing in my first Challenge Cup. I was Chris Jointy. He was telling me that it's the biggest competition. He thought it was bigger than Super League, obviously the grand final, which I believe it is, because it's the oldest competition in the world, but it's such a prestigious cup to win.
Absolutely,
and it means the world. You've won one, haven't you, Carl? Yeah. How did you feel when you won it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
best thing ever.
Yeah,
because for me it completed everything that I managed to be lucky enough to win grand finals, but that was the one game that there was one piece I was missing, Keith. So for me, it made me finish my career content.
Yeah, but my experience getting to a final, my first final was with St Helens, and we played Wigan at Cardiff, and it was a sellout. It was a bank holiday, May bank holiday, and it was absolutely the best week. Best game I've ever been a part of, and to win it was fantastic. With a fantastic group of players, Scully, Kez, and you play with all them boys. And back then, even Chris Joint, players who I looked up to. I used to have a picture of Kieran Cunningham on my wall and Jointy, and then a couple of years later, I was playing with them. So,
and the days after are always good, Keith, aren't they?
Oh well, yeah, the week after. So the bus coming back home, with obviously Longy and that. Longy was a bit of a wild one.
Was that the famous photo when he's at
yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So it was just amazing, and to win it, always. It was a childhood dream that I achieved. But make no mistake, the Challenge Cup is absolutely massive. Even the Aussies, when they come over, they talk about the Challenge Cup because it's been around for 100 years. So
yeah.
It's a question for you both. You get knocked out in the quarterfinals or the fourth round. It seemingly doesn't it doesn't have an impact as much as losing a semi-final. Losing a semi-final, you know, you was 80 minutes away. I mean, how can you change that? Unless it was different as players. If you lose the fourth round, did you feel as much hurt as you did losing a semi-final? How do we change that?
Well, I've lost 2 finals.
I've lost 1.
Yeah.
It's not a place you want to be.
No, it's if you lose,
you may as well go out early doors, right?
Yeah, if you're losing quarter final, semi final, it does hurt. But getting to a final, and then losing, and then being on the other side of it and winning, it's night and day. You want to be winning one.
100%.
It's not nice. Even players in grand finals, you know, lose. It's something that, you know, you've worked your backside off to get there, and then. It's so strange, isn't it? Because the losers get forgotten about and the winners go on to make history.
Yeah, but the season's over then, isn't it? So it's a long time that has to sit with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. I don't think the hard part about losing a Challenge Cup final is that you know you want to be etching your name on a trophy that's such a part of history for that game, and it's such a big occasion, and a lot of the families really enjoy being a part of it and everything. And then, you know, when you lose it, it's just it's hard to bounce back from it, really. But when you win it, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable. Like, you know, it's a day I never forget. And some teams some great players never go and play in finals. Challenge Cup fans, some great players have never won Challenge Cup. So to go through your career and not win anything and get to finals, I'll mention my old mate here, Kevin Brown.
Yeah,
I was always rooting for Kevin. He played in a couple of finals, Challenge Cup finals. I beat him in one. We lost together in another one. So I feel for Kev for a little bit, you know what I mean? Because he's been there and he's felt that. But to win one is a special feeling, mate. It really is. Without
doubt. But we'll just quickly touch up on a couple of other bits of news there. Hull FC, of course, they didn't train after understanding that John Cartwright said that he would leave his post at the end of the season. I don't understand why you wouldn't train, though.
So as I understand it, the suggestions that they down their tools aren't quite right. So it happened on Tuesday, didn't it? And that's when our producer Sean took the spotlight, Kyle.
Did a good job.
So they came in and they did, I think, a little bit of recovery on Tuesday, and then Cartwright sat them down and told them, and then as a group they agreed, I think as well with the massive injuries they've had, it was only supposed to be a light session. They agreed not to do the light session, go home, gather their thoughts. The Wednesday was always going to be a day off and come back the Thursday, and that's how it panned out. So there's a little bit of suggestion that they're down the tools, but I don't know how you two would feel if you was in that conversation in that group. First of all, what's it like when a head coach tells you he's leaving? And second of all, do you still want to train? And you're like, well, we've got a job to do, or is it right to think like, well, we've got injuries. It was only a light session, so let's just go back and come back in 48 hours.
Look, I think upon sort of digesting it, really, that had there been a Super League fixture at the end of the week, they'd have no doubt trained, wouldn't they? I think because of the time off, then they maybe just thought, well, let's just take that news, digest it, and go back into training. But look, we'll move on from that as well, because more of that John Cartwright, how his season will finish. We'll get that as we get through the season. But one more that I just wanted to mention there quickly, Abi Akoku taking the seat of Mike Rush, who held it for 27 years at St Helens. Interesting, isn't it? The guy's been brought in only a couple of months at the RFL, quite a senior role. And then does he leave? Am I reading too much into the NRL stuff that, if the NRL are kind of come in, then he's leaving a post to make sure that nothing gets asked of him, or not?
Interesting times for both St Helens and for the sport, the governing body. Look, the NRL CEO, Andrew Abdo, he's expected to fly in the next couple of weeks. There's still so many questions. There's still no details over this proposed NRL Super League deal. And that's what it's all about, the details, isn't it? So he's hopefully coming over, and these hard questions that no one has any answers for will hopefully get settled. So I think big news will come when he arrives in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, that could maybe it's a coincidence, or it's timing, isn't it, where he's gone to St Helens at the same time that the NRL are in talks with Super League.
Well, Keith, mentioning the NRL, yourself and the Melbourne Storm, you spent some time over there. I think most people we've touched upon this show. It seems that each or every other week that the NRL being involved in the game would be a good thing. Where do you now sit as it thinking two ways? One, if you're still actively as a fan of the game, but more now that your son's playing, and what his future could look like. Do you throw your weight behind the NRL becoming involved?
Yeah, I think if it makes Super League a better game, more marketable, then absolutely. I don't think it can be a detriment. They've got it so spot on in the NRL. It is probably the most popular sport over there.
Yep.
Most people watching the game. I'm still in a group chat with all the Melbourne old boys, and they take a massive interest in Super League. Matt Guy has just come over, and we didn't meet up because we couldn't. But Lucas played for Rochdale on loan. He went on a weekly loan, and his son were playing for Oldham. So it could have been Lucas playing against Cole Geyer. But yeah, I mean, they do rate Super League. The Aussies do rate Super League. I just think if they're bringing something to our game to make it a better game, then we've got to go for it. We've got to move forward.
Yeah.
I think the thinking from the people high up, it's not had a difference and not affecting our game. I feel like, looking at the game 20 years ago, my personal opinion, I thought obviously the wrestle and technical stuff around the ruck and that is a little bit better, but I think the quality of the game back then was better than it is now. But that's my opinion. Players wise, we brought some fantastic players like Jamie Lyon came over, and he was literally not even in his prime.
No, scary.
And we pulled him out of it. Actually, Killer, he retired from Parramatta because he liked to go shooting pigs and stuff like that. He was a farm boy, and we brought him over, and obviously you know what he did.
The rest is history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think a merge between Super League and NRL would be a really good move for Super League.
Yeah. Everyone's open-minded. Everyone's open-minded to it. I spoke to Chris Redlinski, Wigan are leading it. Everyone's open-minded. There's just some big questions. The broadcast, the control. Clubs don't want to completely hand over control. How many teams it includes? There are these huge questions.
There's loads that's going to come out.
Yeah. So there's so much to it.
Yeah, and look, we'll bring you all that news as and when it unfolds as well. Look, just touching on your son Lucas. He's been highly thought of at Wigan. He's been in 21-man squads on regular occasions. Yeah. Yet to make his senior debut. First of all, how proud are you of him?
Yeah, obviously he's my son. I'm very proud of him. From him growing up in St Helens, first picking a ball up, I just knew he was going to be a rugby player. But sometimes pressure from when your dad's being a Super League player and son's coming through. Sometimes it's unneeded pressure on them kids. But Lucas he's always been driven, and he wants to be his own person. He's got a fantastic attitude. He's a great player, and for me, I said to my son, if you want to do this, you have to be the hardest worker. You have to rock up with a great attitude.
Are you as a father? Were you quite? Do you let him get on with it, or are you quite hands-on with him in terms of, well, I know from when my own son plays, we have some conversations in the car on the way home, and look, I'll be open and honest with that. I try and challenge him all the time. Where are you at with?
Yeah, I think I'm not a pushy dad. And I do enjoy watching him, and I'm watching bits and pieces of his game and stuff. And to be honest with you, obviously he's a young back rower, and he's in probably one of the best clubs in the world to be learning from some fantastic players. But like I said, he has got a great attitude, and I just said, look, just keep working, keep building, keep working on your game every single week. Certain stuff don't get too down on yourself, because these young kids nowadays, they're so critical of themselves. And I were the same. But yeah, I am very proud of him, and I'm excited for his future. He's got all the right attributes to go a long way, and he's in the best team possible for him to develop as a player. and like I said, it will be a proud day to see him make his debut for Wigan.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon, but I don't think he's too far off. I think if he just stays consistent, the two things I always mention to my son: stay consistent and be disciplined. Those two things will get to where you need to get to.
You say it's one of the best clubs in the world. It's definitely one of the best clubs at bringing through the next generation, isn't it, of players and stars? And he's one of them. And I imagine he's in the same age group as Keane McDermott, Taylor Kerr, Noah Hockinson.
Yeah.
So I imagine you've spent quite a lot of weekends watching that group and been quite impressed. And they're the crop coming up now. We saw we've seen them coming through, haven't we?
Yeah.
Keane McDermott, I think, played in the Challenge Cup. You must be, quite impressed by the Wigan youngsters, and of course your son within that.
Yeah, so I've seen them kids. Obviously, when Lucas signed, he was 14, 15. Lucas played most of his junior football in Wigan and St Helens. He played for Orrell. Then he captained. He played for Clockface and captain Orrell, and he played with young Taylor Kerr at Orrell, with Locker's lad as well, George O'Loughlin. So I've seen them lads come together, and it's probably the best group of players I've seen, young players, all in one team. They went on to win the academy final at St Helens. So you got Jack Ferrimond, Noah, as you've seen Noah. But I've been watching these lads for the last 4 or 5 years, so I know what they're all capable of. Obviously, being in a really good team like Wigan, it's always going to be hard for them lads to just slot in. Maybe if they were playing at another Super League club, they might be playing every week. But I think what he's doing is he's drip feeding these players, and he's showing the Wigan fans what's to come. And all these lads, like Matty Pete wanted, he wanted local lads coming through, and them group of lads are a fantastic group of players, and they've got massive futures in the game.
Well, the future's certainly bright for Wigan Warriors there, with all these next stars coming through. Keith's already mentioned a number of them, and who knows, maybe there'll be another Mason tearing up Super League for the next 10 years or so to come. Look, after retirement, Keith, I wanted just to ask you, where did life take you? Because you've been retired since 2013, did you say it was? 2013? I actually remember playing against you at Castleford there, right towards the back end.
That's it.
So look, take us on your journey. Where did retirement take you?
Obviously, I speak about the struggle for me to adjust, because obviously when I've been playing rugby league since I was 5 years old. And you hear a lot of sportsmen, when they retire, they're lost no matter how much money they've got. I think for me, my identity was all in rugby league. I was a rugby league person, and I was a physical person, physical player. Right. So what I missed most about the game was the contact, the physicality, being disciplined. And I think when I retired, I did get offered a couple of contracts from a couple of clubs, Hull, Bradford, and I went through a massive court case against Huddersfield Giants for unfair dismissal, which I eventually won the case. But that kind of broke my heart a little bit, because I've been at that club for 7 years, and been to a couple of finals with them and notched up over 150 games for that club, and run my blood to water as a front rower for the club, and for what they did to me, and how they did it was pretty naughty, pretty bad, and I lost love for the game.
Right.
So I got sacked from Huddersfield, and eventually went on to win the case. But I went to sign for Castleford, but at that time I was going through a court case, and I kind of lost love for the game.
I get it.
Which really annoyed me, because I loved rugby league. Rugby league gave me everything I'd ever dreamt of. Being a young kid, dreaming of playing one day to be a rugby league player. And then I lost love for the game. And as you know, you can't play rugby league if you're going in half-hearted, or if you're playing at 85%. Obviously, everybody plays with injuries, right? But the game, you have to go 100 mile an hour, especially as a front rower.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to retire. And so I retired. Did a film with Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke gave me a call, do you want to be in a movie?
I must have been mad.
I says, when's this? And he says, it's next week. So at the time I was playing with Castleford. So I said to Darryl Powell, he goes, I made some excuse up there to be at hospital or whatever. And so the day I didn't go into training, I went down to London, shot the film with Mickey. I had about 13 lines in the movie. And then I thought, right, this is going to be me. I'm going to be an actor now. So I did retire. I won the case. You know, I could retire. I had a bit of money back then, quite comfortable. And I always remember my good mate telling me, boxer Joe Calzaghe, saying, you know, if you're going to retire, Keith, you're a long time retired. And I know Joe, he struggled, you know, to make that transition, and a lot of sportsmen did.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand what he meant by when he said, you're a long time retired. And then it hit me about 3 or 4 months in. That were like, wow, I'm never going to play this game again. So all my identity was being an athlete, being a rugby league player. And it took me a long time to get over that, mate.
It's interesting, Keith, because we had Dan Sargentson on last week, who spoke about his own mental health, and he walked away from a lucrative contract. It got to a place where he was, you know, he decided it didn't matter what he was being paid. He knew he needed to leave. But you know, obviously, you know, you were playing right up until the end. You were playing where maybe your head wasn't in the right space. But how did you then navigate life after the game? Where did you know, you mentioned about the movie, but then what came next? Because you know, you've touched upon finding it very difficult. Yeah. Do you want to share anything regarding that road, or?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, I wasn't living the best life. You know, I was, you know, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and I was hanging around with people I shouldn't really been hanging around with. I lost my discipline, even though I was in the gym all the time. Yeah, I was just, I was lost. I was lost for a number of years, and I can't really explain it. And obviously, Dan Sargentson probably went through the same thing, but you know, I thank God every single day to be in the position I am now, fit, healthy, and you know, me and my partner Nicole, we decided we wanted to stop drinking. So I'm about 470, 80 days alcohol free now.
Well done.
So I feel fantastic. It has been a journey. You know, I did get into the films. I've been doing that for over the last 10 years, drips and drabs. Currently I've got a film out now called The Punished, which is streaming in America. It's a Yorkshire film. It's a film that I co-produced, and I played the lead actor. I played an alcoholic fighting with his own demons, trying to catch a serial killer. So that's a film that I produced. So I realised I want in London or Hollywood, so I thought, let's just make my own film. So you can watch that on Apple and Amazon.
Well, there you go, guys. Keep a lookout.
So yeah, so like I said, it was quite a tough transition. Yeah, but I'm in the best place I've ever been.
A comic book as well, was there, and a couple of books along the way as well?
Yeah. So I did a bit of writing in that, and obviously Rugby Blood was a screenplay that I actually co-wrote with a Norwegian writer called Rugby Blood. It was about a young rugby star who's a bit like a double agent type of thing who fights off the Russians. Right. So what I did do is I came up with an idea for Rugby Blood, an Origins comic, and I wanted to get Super League players involved. So I'd give Darryl Clarkey, ex-teammate of mine, do you want to be in there? Conrad Earl, right. You know, Nathan Cleary, all these players, which Rugby Blood 2 it's not quite done, but it's most of the artwork's completed, but I'll send you some of that anyway. But so Rugby Blood was about a young kid who overcomes struggles to become a star player. And it was kind of like an autobiographical story of my life when I was a kid. Right. So I did the comic book. I brought a guy in who was an artist called Paul Roper, and I gave him the story, wrote the story, and then went to Super League. Robert Elston was at the time. He was the main guy, CEO. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they endorsed the comic. So you know, I just, like I said, I've thrown myself into different things. I think it's important for you to throw yourself and show different attributes as not just your athletic ability.
That was going to be my next question, Keith, because there'll be some players that are listening in, you know, coming up to a vulnerable part of their life in terms of transitioning out of sport. Is that the message then, to throw yourself into something that you've got passion behind?
Yeah, I always say, like, you know, I retired from sport. I didn't retire from life. You know, and I think this is an important thing. You've got to show more than just your athletic ability. Obviously, I threw myself into writing, doing the acting, the film. I've done all kinds of different jobs over the last 10 years. And when when you're a sportsman, you're in this bubble, right? So you're in this bubble and you think it's never going to stop, it's never going to end. But unfortunately, it is going to end. So you need to make sure that you're ready for the transition. I think there's a lot of things I learned from rugby league. Teamwork, leadership, never giving up is an important one. Getting knocked down and getting back up again, and that is literally a metaphor for life. That's what we do every single week, as you know, as a rugby league player. We get bashed and we have to get back up, and that's what you're going to have to do when you retire from sport. But remember, a lot of players, if you're lucky, you retire in your 30s. The game, certain players, I think the lifespan of a rugby player is 5 years maybe before injuries take over.
Than that, Keith,
it could be. It could be. So it has been pretty tough, but I think all the qualities I learnt from rugby league has enabled me to be able to challenge what's been ahead of me. And like I said, I'm in a very good place in my life now. I've got good people around me. I've got a loving partner. My kids are doing great. So I'm very grateful and blessed to be where I am now.
Well, Keith, look, thanks a lot for sharing that. It's been brilliant to have you on, and it's great to see that you're in a great place now. But look, guys, we have been beaten for time. Thank you very much for watching, listening, wherever that may be. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything across the world of rugby league here at All Out Rugby League Studio. Remember, in the comment section, guys, if you can swipe to the left, if you're watching on a mobile phone or tablet, you can hit that hype button so we can continue to keep growing our audiences. Have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye for now.